Since my 9th baby was born at the end of July, we've been trying to prepare for a new season. Not just literally with preparing for fall and back to school and cooler weather, but a new season of life. A very busy season with 2 under 2 and a more packed schedule than we've ever had before. As I was preparing for this transition, a dear friend here on YouTube, Jessica from 3 Rivers Homestead, posted some thoughts on the concept of slow living over on Instagram. It really got me thinking about my own take on the term. I have often referenced slow living and actually do consider myself to be a slow living content creator. Jessica basically said that she isn't and doesn't really connect with the term, and I get it. After all, a mom of many young children who is trying to homestead and homeschool and create content for the internet is not exactly filling her days with leisurely walks in the woods or hours of knitting by the fire. My life, much like Jessica's, is far from slow. When our family moved from Washington to Wisconsin, one reason we gave for our big move was the desire for a slower pace of life. We wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of the crowded West Coast. We wanted to spend less time in the rat race and more time in nature. Understandably, as our family watched our new life unfold from a distance, they questioned our reasoning. It sure didn't appear that our life had slowed down any. In many ways, it seemed busier than ever as we took up farming, built a house from scratch, and so many other endeavors, along continuing to have babies. I have questioned my use of the words slower pace of life and slow living over the years, and Jessica's words really had me reconsidering using them at all. Today I'm going to take you along for some fall homestead preserving tasks as I discuss what slow living means to me, why I'm in many ways setting it aside, and then I'll give you guys a quick update on our new fast-paced season of life. One thing that I feel like is a marker of slow living is the ability to spend time on hobbies that you enjoy, like baking or sewing. One thing I definitely don't have time for right now is learning new skills through books or trial and error. So today's video sponsor, Craftsy, is how I plan to continue learning new photography, baking, and sewing skills so that I can make the best use of my time. Craftsy is your online resource for everything creative with over 2,000 classes in over 20 different categories, including woodworking, crocheting, knitting, baking, cake decorating, photography, and more. Right now, I'm working my way through a class called Jump into Cake Decorating with Joshua John Russell, since I have several kids' birthdays coming up, and I figure that not only can I have fun in the kitchen, but making my kids' cakes will save us money and allow us more control over the ingredients, so I feel like it's a fun hobby with some practical benefits too. If you want to try out Craftsy for yourself, the first 1,000 people to click on the link below or use the QR code on the screen can get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. Valid for new members only. Aside from having more time for the things that we enjoy, I really feel like slow living is about spending our time meeting our family's basic needs and prioritizing relationships over productivity. This means that instead of running to the store for all of our food, flipping a switch to turn on the heater, and then spending all of our waking hours at a job to pay for those so-called luxuries, we're growing a garden for our food and chopping firewood for heat, making us less dependent on a career and more dependent on our own 2 hands. The irony of this term is that by this very definition, we're actually taking on more physical labor and more hours of hard work. But while from the outside, the person who is baking all of their family's bread and milking a cow and homeschooling the kids is very busy, which isn't wrong, what they don't see is that this person has traded the unfulfilling jobs, the overstimulating shopping malls, and the pace of the city for tasks that still allow us to visit with our kids while we pick weeds, or visit with the neighbor as we trade eggs for milk, or have hours to think while we bake bread, even if it's sprinkled with kids coming to ask for help on their math and babies needing fed. Yes, this life is so very busy, but a kind of busy that doesn't stifle creativity or spirituality or compete with our most important priorities, which are faith and family. So yes, I do still think that we're striving for the simple life here in our little homestead, but I will admit that we're coming into a season where we're going to be spending less time in the kitchen or in the garden and more time pouring into our kids in other ways. Our oldest is going to be 18 shortly, and it's really put into perspective how short our time is with them before they become adults. And so yes, we still milk our cow and strive towards a goal of staying out of the grocery store and making food from scratch, but it will look a little different. For example, we're now on the go 2 to 3 days per week. One day we will be doing horseback riding lessons in the fall, and then in the winter we like to spend the entire day up at the mountain skiing. Then on another day we get up early in the morning for enrichment classes that are an hour away. Those go all day, so I just hang out with the babies in the car or around the town that we're in, and then from there we drive an hour and a half to swim lessons and then head home late at night just to get up early the next day and head to co-op. Then, of course, we're squeezing in all of our academic lessons around those things, as well as trying to maintain my content creation business. And if you would have asked me a few years ago if I would ever be doing this, I probably would have said no way, but my kids needed a change of pace in our homeschool routine and more time with other kids their ages. So this new schedule is a temporary way of meeting those needs. I don't plan to do it forever, but we're all very excited about this new busy yet fun schedule, and I know that if we need to make adjustments as the school year goes on, we can do that too. No matter what end of the spectrum you're currently in, whether you're home all week with little ones or you're on the go driving your kids to activities and social events, if you're on this channel, you're probably interested in growing and preserving food and getting homemade healthy meals made for your family. So here are a few ways I'm still fitting those things in. First of all, I'm batch cooking and prepping meals ahead of time whenever possible. I plan things that are very simple and easy to pack so that we can avoid takeout and still eat from scratch meals on the go. I plan to film both my breakfast and lunch batch cooking days here soon, which is something I've done off and on for a while. And actually, I do have a video showing an older version of my breakfast batch cooking day, and I'll link that below. But a big change for us is not being at home for dinner one day out of the week and coming home right at dinner time on 2 of the other days. I'm still working to make these days go more smoothly and figure out which dinners work best for those days. Here I'm making peach cups. Admittedly, we have eaten a lot of store-bought food this summer, and fruit cups were one thing that my kids really enjoyed. I had a ton of peaches to use up that I bought in bulk from our local Mennonite store, so I decided to try making my own fruit cups, and they have been a huge hit. To make them, I skinned and prepared my peaches just as if I was going to make regular canned peaches. If you are new to canning, I have a beginner-friendly video on that process that I will link below. Then I chopped the peaches into 1/2-inch pieces and canned them in 4-ounce jars using hot white grape juice as my liquid instead of syrup, just like I do with my regular peaches. It comes out to about 1/2 of a peach per jar, and it is the perfect serving size. I did try doing some 8-ounce jars, but the feedback from my kids was that it was too much and they preferred the 4-ounce size. I was so excited to have replaced this snack with a homemade option that I also decided to make some fruit leathers just using pureed peaches with honey, and those turned out great as well. My only complaint with the fruit leathers, and really anything dried, is that it feels like they take forever to make and approximately 5 minutes to eat, since they lose a lot of mass in the drying process, and my kids can just devour them. But it's definitely a healthier option than store-bought snacks, so I'll take it. I also chopped up and froze a bunch of fruit with the idea of making fruit cups that will be still half frozen by lunch, kind of like a fruit slush. So if you don't want a can, you could try that as well. Since there is still so much food coming from the garden, I'm taking the easy route of preserving it whenever possible, such as popping tomatoes into the freezer until I have a chance to do one big tomato processing day in the late fall, or freezing things instead of canning. For things that are temporarily being frozen, I just pop them into Ziploc bags, but a vacuum sealer is really nice for longer storage, not only because it protects the food from freezer burn and keeps the food better quality, but it also helps compress the food. Our freezers are very full already, and we need to conserve space in whatever ways we can. Another thing that has continued to help keep my many different plates spinning as we come into this busy season is routines and schedules. We have chore charts and daily routines and checklists. I even just made some new checklists to help us make sure that we get out the door with everything we need for that day. And the biggest benefit to having these is that it cuts down on the brain power needed to keep everything going. If I have to stop and think about what needs to be done and who needs to be doing it for every task every single day, that is a huge amount of mental space tied up in just maintenance. I also am continuing to simplify our home as much as possible, purging any extra clothes or toys so that we can spend less time managing our stuff. Overall, I feel like it's a careful balance for us right now between hanging on to those slow living values we hold dear and also running a busy household of 11. I know I'm not alone in this, as I watch other families come into these preteen and teen years and realize that their kids have needs that can't always be met without leaving the homestead. If you have also experienced this, I'd love any advice you have to offer. I'd also love to hear your take on this concept of slow living. Do you live the so-called slow life? How do you define it? I'm now off to prep for a busy day tomorrow, but hopefully I'll see you here next week.